My name is Alexander Hayes, and I had just turned 18 without a single candle lit my name. 2 days before my birthday, my mother sat across from me at the kitchen table and told me the party was canceled. My sister, she said, didn't feel special enough this month. She needed the attention more than I did. I smiled. I nodded. Pause. Then I went upstairs, opened a drawer I hadn't touched in 3 years, and sent a 2-word text message to a man my parents didn't even know existed. The next morning, a courier arrived at our front door with an envelope carrying a law firm seal. My father read the first page, standing in the hallway, still in his socks, and his face went the color of old paper. My mother, who had already booked my sister a birthday trip to Murray using money she believed was still hers to spend, was on the phone with the bank within the hour, her voice climbing higher with every sentence. Before I tell you what happened next, please hit like and subscribe. Drop your city and local time below. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now let me take you back 6 years to a summer evening in my grandfather's workshop when he said something to me that I didn't understand until the week they canceled my birthday. The workshop smelled like sawdust and machine oil with something sweeter underneath, the cedar shavings that collected in soft little curls under the lathe. I was 12 years old. My grandfather, Dada, called it the only honest room in the house. He built furniture, not for money. He'd stopped taking clients years earlier, but because his hands needed something true to hold on to. The door to his workshop had a particular creak, low and long, like it was clearing its throat before letting you in. I could still hear it if I closed my eyes. That evening, the light came in low and gold through the one dusty window, catching the sawdust in the air, so it looked like the whole room was breathing glitter. Dada was sanding a small wooden box, running his thumb along the grain until it went smooth as glass. "Feel this," he said, and pressed my palm flat against the wood. It was warm from his hands. "You can't rush wood, Alex. You can't rush people either. Both of them tell you the truth eventually. You just have to be patient enough to let them." I didn't understand what he meant. I was 12. I was thinking about cricket. Inside the house, things were different. My mother kept the good dishes locked in a cabinet my sister and I weren't allowed to touch, but she'd bring them out, unasked, whenever my sister's friends came over. My father worked in property and talked about people the way he talked about plots of land. This one's worth something, that one isn't. I remember one dinner where my sister, Zara, for years younger than me, cried because her school uniform wasn't the good brand, and by the weekend she had 3 new blazers. That same month, I asked for new football boots because mine had split at the seam. My mother said we'd look into it next month. We never did. I played in boots held together with electrical tape until the season ended. Dada noticed. He noticed everything, actually in that quiet way old men do when they've already lived through every kind of person there is. He never said a bad word about my parents. Not once. Instead, every Sunday, he'd take me to his workshop, feed me his wife's old biscuit recipe with too much cardamom in it, and let me use the good chisels. "Beta," he told me once, wiping his glasses on his shirt, "the ones who truly care for you never make you compete for a seat at the table." I remember nodding like I understood. I didn't. Not really. Not yet. There was a particular Sunday I still think about. It had rained the night before, and the workshop floor smelled like wet concrete and pine resin, that specific smell that only exists after rain touches old wood. Dada made me hold a plank steady while he ran it through. The table saw, and afterward he let me press my palm flat against the fresh-cut edge, still faintly warm from the friction. "You feel that heat?" he asked. "That's the wood telling you it was just changed. Everything that's been through something leaves a little warmth behind, if you know how to feel for it." We ate lunch on 2 overturned crates that afternoon. His wife's old biscuits, too much cardamom, a thermos of tea that had gone slightly bitter from sitting too long. I didn't care. It tasted like belonging somewhere. Inside the house, that same week, my mother reorganized the good dishes cabinet for the 3rd time that month, in preparation for one of Zara's school friends coming over for tea. I remember standing in the doorway, watching her polish a teacup that had never once been used for me, and feeling something I didn't have a name for yet. Not jealousy exactly, more like the quiet arithmetic of realizing you'd been assigned a smaller number than someone else in the same through. What I did understand, even at 12, was the temperature difference between two rooms in the same house. Dada's workshop was warm even in winter, heated by nothing more than an old space heater and the smell of cedar. Our kitchen was cold even in summer, no matter how high my mother turned up the stove. I didn't have proof of anything wrong. I didn't have a word for it. I just had a feeling, small and persistent, like a stone in my shoe I'd learned to walk around instead of removing. Something in our house was being measured and divided in a way that never quite included me. I couldn't see the scale yet. I could only feel that I was standing on the wrong side of it. Dada got sick the spring I turned 14. Slowly at first. A cough that wouldn't leave, a tiredness that sat behind his eyes even when he smiled. Then not slowly at all. I spent every afternoon I could in that hospital room, watching machines breathe for him in numbers that I didn't understand. My parents visited too, but I noticed something in the way my father talked to the doctors. He wasn't asking about pain management. He was asking about the estate. He used that word the way he used it for houses he was trying to sell. Dada died on a Tuesday in October. I remember it was raining, and the workshop door creak sounded different that week, hollow like it knew. 3 days after the funeral, I came downstairs for water at midnight and heard my parents in the kitchen, their voices low but not low enough. The house alone is worth $40 million, my father was saying. Once probate clears, we consolidate everything. Alex doesn't need to know the details. He's a child. And Zara's school fees, my mother added. This solves that. Finally, I stood in the hallway in the dark and didn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't walk in and demand answers. I just listened, the way Dada had taught me to listen would, quietly, patiently, letting it tell me the truth on its own time. I went back to bed and stared at the ceiling for a long time. I wasn't angry yet. I was something colder and more useful than angry. I was awake. Over the following months, I watched the language in our house change. Dada's workshop wasn't Dada's workshop anymore. It was the outbuilding, has resale value, needs clearing. His tools weren't tools. They were scrap, mostly. His memory wasn't grief. It was an asset line. That's the word they use for everything that used to be love. I started going out to the workshop alone after school, before anyone noticed I was gone. I oiled the tools so they wouldn't rust. I kept the door hinges quiet. I dusted the little wooden box he'd been sanding the night he taught me about patience. I never finished it, and neither did anyone else. I just kept it safe. Nobody asked where I disappeared to for an hour every afternoon. That was a strange gift hidden inside being overlooked. My parents were so busy measuring Zara's happiness in birthday parties and new blazers that they stopped watching me entirely. I had become furniture in my own home, present, useful when needed, otherwise invisible. One afternoon, I found my mother in the workshop doorway, looking around at Dada's tools with the particular expression she wore when she was mentally pricing something. She didn't see me behind the shelving. She picked up his favorite chisel, the one with the worn oak handle, the one he'd let me use exactly twice, turn it over once and set it back down like it meant nothing. We should get someone to value all this properly, she said to no one, and walked out. I stood there a long time after she left, holding that same chisel, feeling the shape her hand had left in the air where it used to be. I decided, somewhere in that quiet, that invisible didn't have to mean powerless. It could mean unwatched. And unwatched people can do a great deal if they're patient enough. I didn't know yet what I was going to do. I only knew I wasn't going to be surprised by whatever came next. It was almost a year after Dada's death when I found it. I was clearing a shelf in the workshop my parents had finally scheduled for disposal, and behind a row of paint tins, wrapped in an old cloth that still smelled faintly of cedar, was a small brass key and an envelope with my name on it in Dada's handwriting. The envelope had one line inside. Ask for Mr. Raymond. He has been expecting you since you were 12. I didn't tell anyone. I sat with it for 4 days, turning it over the way Dada would have wanted me to, not rushing it, letting it tell me the truth on its own schedule. On the 5th day, I called the number on the card tucked behind the letter. A calm, unhurried voice answered. Alex, I was wondering when you'd call. Mr. Raymond had been my grandfather's lawyer for over 30 years. We met at his office 2 streets from the courthouse, a room that smelled like old paper and furniture polish. not unlike the workshop itself. I sat very still. 6 years. He had planned this 6 years before the night I overheard my parents in the kitchen. He hadn't just loved me quietly in a workshop full of sawdust. He had built me a door out long before I even knew I'd need one. Mr. Raymond explained the rest carefully. My parents, as temporary trustees, had taken out loans against the property using their authority. Loans they assumed would simply convert into ownership once the estate settled. They had been counting a house that was never going to be theirs. Your grandfather asked me a strange question the year he set this up, Mr. Raymond said, leaning back in his chair. He asked me how long it usually takes for people to reveal who they really are if you just give them enough time and enough opportunity. I told him, honestly, most people don't need very long at all. He said, good, then structure it so we only have to wait 6 years. I laughed quietly for the first time in a long time. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the laugh of finally understanding a joke someone told you when you were too young to get it. Mr. Raymond slid a second folder across the desk. Bank statements, a spreadsheet, a timeline. My father had approached 3 different lenders over 18 months, each time using projected ownership of the house as collateral. Each application had been quietly declined until the 4th bank agreed, on the condition that ownership transfer be finalized within 90 days. That 90-day window ended 4 days after my birthday. They've already applied for a line of credit using the house as collateral, Mr. Raymond said. The bank is processing it this week. Once your birthday passes and the trust converts, that application becomes invalid. They don't know that yet. That night, I stood outside the kitchen door again, the way I had 2 years earlier. My parents were on a call with someone from the bank, my mother laughing about how everything would be finalized by the... Are you sad? He asked, swinging his legs off the edge of the step. A little, I admitted, but I won't be for long. He nodded like that made complete sense, and offered me half of a candy he'd been saving in his pocket, slightly melted, lint stuck to one corner. I ate it anyway. It was, without question, the best birthday gift I received that year. Earlier that same day, my mother had tried again, softer this time, almost gentle. She sat on the edge of my bed and said she'd been thinking, maybe we could do a small dinner, just the 2 of us, just to make up for things. Her voice had the particular warmth people use when they need something from you, but haven't said what yet. That's kind, I said. I'll think about it. She smiled, satisfied, and left the room without asking what I actually wanted. She never had. That night, I walked out to the workshop one last time before everything changed. I sat on Dada's old stool, the wood worn smooth in the shape of him, and held the little unfinished box he'd been sanding the last evening we spent together. I wish this were different. I wish my parents had been the kind of people who would have thrown me a small, warm party instead of calculating whose birthday was more useful to celebrate. I wish they had wanted to know me instead of manage me. But wishes don't rebuild a house. What Dada left me does. I cried there, on that stool, in that smell of cedar and oil. Not loudly, not for long. Just enough to let something settle. Then I wiped my face, locked the workshop door behind me, and went inside to wait for midnight. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to turns. At 11:50 p.m., I sat at my desk with my laptop open and the small brass key on the table beside it. The house was silent. My sister's light was off. My parents' door was shut, the hallway smelling faintly of my mother's night cream, the way it always did. Mr. Raymond joined the video call 2 minutes. Early, dressed even at that hour, a cup of tea steaming beside his keyboard. Ready? He asked. Ready, I said. He walked me through the final digital signature, his voice as calm as it had been the first day we met. This confirms your identity as trust beneficiary as of 12 o'clock tonight. From that moment, everything your grandfather set aside is under your name and your authority. At 12 o'clock exactly, I signed. Welcome, Alex, Mr. Raymond said quietly. Your grandfather would be proud of how patient you've been. 12:03 a.m. I am 18. I am the owner of a house, a workshop, and a trust my parents never knew they'd already lost. Downstairs, the kitchen light was still on. My father had left his laptop open on the counter, a half-finished email to the bank glowing on the screen, confirming the collateral loan for final signature in the morning. He was still writing his plan for a house that, as of 3 minutes earlier, he no longer had any legal claim to. He'd find that out in about 9 hours. The birthday brunch my mother arranged for Zara's special month happened anyway, in our backyard, with a banner that didn't have my name on it. I sat at the edge of the table, quiet, unremarkable, exactly the way they were used to seeing me. Halfway through, my mother pulled me aside near the kitchen door. "Alex, Beta, I know things have been tense. Maybe next weekend we do something small for you. Just family. I'll think about it," I said again, and this time I meant something entirely different by it. At 11 o'clock, my father's phone rang. I watched him step away from the table, phone pressed to his ear, and I watched his face change in real time. The polite confusion, then the stillness, then the color leaving his cheeks the same way it had the morning the courier arrived. He came back to the table and looked at me for a long moment. He looked at me like I was still the boy who wore taped-together football boots and asked for nothing. I wasn't. I hadn't been for 6 years. "Alex," he said quietly, "we need to talk." "Okay," I said, "but not today. Today's Zara's day, remember?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile in triumph. I just picked up my plate, thanked my mother for the food, and went back to sit with Ibrahim, who was building something out of napkins and toothpicks like it was the most important project in the world. Zara found me by the drinks table an hour later. She was 15, and she'd noticed more than anyone gave her credit for. "Is Baba okay?" she asked. "He looks weird." "He'll be fine," I told her, and I meant it. Whatever came next between my parents and me, it was never going to be Zara's weight to carry. She hadn't asked for any of this any more than I had. I made a note, quietly, to make sure she never felt the cost of decisions that weren't hers. By the time the last guest left, my mother still hadn't said a word to me about the phone call. She moved through the cleanup with a brightness that didn't reach her eyes, the way people do when they're rehearsing a version of the day that never actually happened. Dada used to say, "The ones who truly care for you never make you compete for a seat at the table." I used to think he meant something simple. Be kind, share, don't keep score. He meant something deeper. He meant that if you ever find yourself competing for a place that should have already been yours, you're not sitting at the wrong table. You're sitting at the wrong house. My parents lost the collateral loan application the same week the bank discovered the property no longer belonged to them. They still live in that house, my house now, under a lease Mr. Raymond drafted, fair but firm. My mother stopped calling it our home out loud after that. Mr. Raymond still checks in on me every few months, the way Dada probably asked him to, all those years ago. As for me, I still have the workshop. I finished the little wooden box myself, sanding it the way Dada showed me, Patty. Unrushed, letting the grain tell its own truth. I keep it on the windowsill where the evening light comes in gold. I think about Dada every time that door creaks open. And I think, some people spend their whole lives measuring who deserves a seat. He spent his making sure I'd never have to ask for one. If you've ever had to stay quiet and patient while people who were supposed to love you made you feel like an afterthought, I want to hear your story. Tell me in the comments. And if this story moved you, subscribe. There are more to come.